they tried to trace back around 2 years ago. I had gone 10 kilometers inside. Now he stopped at the 2 kilometers line.
Kilometer
Awesome.
inside China. Once again, thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation. And since you are an expert when it comes to China, when it comes to Indian Army, and you also have experience working with the Indian Navy also, you are the right person for this interview. And
Thank
I've
you.
heard you
And
speak earlier also.
thank you. It's my pleasure being here.
We since our last interview, I think we did that interview almost an year ago. Again, it
Yeah.
was on China, and you had gone on to explain Chinese strategies. So I'll start with the recent incident. So, how much truth is there in Chinese getting kidnapped during the incident? What is your version of the story? I mean, I would like to hear it from you.
Yeah.
What had happened?
Firstly, a little bit of intro as to where it happened and when it happened. So this happened somewhere around 8th to 9th December, intervening days of 8th and 9th December. And this area is what is known as, in Chinese, they call it as Dongzhang Valley, and the area is known as Dongzhang, and it's part of a Kuana country. So people can Google it, and they'll find it exactly in the near vicinity of what in India we call it as Bumla Pass. And this is in front of Tawang. Tawang is in Arunachal Pradesh. Now, what exactly has happened here has got a history. What has transpired last year also was that this area was being contested over last couple of years, because initially the Chinese infrastructure was not so great at this point, and this point has got a very wonderful landmark called Yangtze Gatser waterfalls, or what we call it as holy waterfalls in front of Tawang. Now this waterfall, and there's along with this waterfall, there's a river which is flowing down below. This is basically what Chinese call it as Dongzhang River, or what we call it as the Yangtze Valley. Now, what the Chinese contest is that earlier the river at its narrowest point had a wooden crossing where the Chinese would come across onto our side and take holy water from the waterfalls and then go back. And in above this holy waterfall and in that general area, there's a steep climb all the way up to 17,000 feet where some of our posts are located. And before you climb up to this 17,000 feet post, there is a steep climb, and there is a small gradient which is called the grazing lands. And there was a consistent effort by the Chinese to get the locals along with their cattle to graze in that particular area, and that is their traditional way of claiming that particular area in future, saying that yes, our people used to frequent this particular place, graze, and our livestock would graze. So this particular area along with the waterfalls would belong to China. That was the contention which they wanted to build up over a period. But what has happened was that the Indian Army took a proactive stand initially, and the wooden bridge got washed away. After the wooden bridge got washed away, there was a check post which was established by the Indian Army, and thereafter they effectively prevented the Chinese from intruding into our side. Now, because of this, they had for a couple of years lost their link to this particular grazing ground as well as the holy waterfalls. They want the waterfall, they want the grazing lands, and they want to go all the way. Their actual objective is the post which is at 17,000 feet. And the reason why they want to capture that particular peak is that peak gives India the domination as well as observational advantage into looking into the infrastructure on their side. So if you capture that, you will be denied observation, you will be denied even domination by whatever means, Arunachal Pradesh. So they have their own name for Arunachal Pradesh, which effectively translates into South Tibet. So in any case, they want all the area till Tawang and the monastery to be because they cite some old linkages of the Tawang monastery with one more monastery which is located in Kuana country. Kuana country is basically a bang opposite of Tawang in China. That is in Tibet, basically. What we call it, China occupied Tibet. That is the correct way to term it. Now, coming back to the present context, on December 8th, there was a petrol party, which is not an exactly petrol party. It is more of a, in Chinese terms, an occupational force or an invasion force of around 200 people, 200 plus people, which were sent across with the objective of actually going all the way up and occupying the platoon post and, destroying the bunkers and establishing their own structures there. Now, these people were effectively thwarted and stopped by the 100-odd people which the Indian Army had at that particular point of time. And also over a period, we have built up a network of our forces in such a manner that initially when these Chinese were stopped, the Indian forces were reinforced, and soon there was a at that particular point, the strength of the Indian Army was slightly more than the Chinese Army, and there was a scuffle between both the parties, and the Chinese got a nice thrashing from one of our battalions, and thereafter they took around 15 to 20 casualties is what our people say, definite seriously injured casualties, and 4 or 5 of our chaps got injured in that scuffle also. However, these people were not in a position to, even go back. That was the state. And also the Chinese party which had come to occupy that particular post got scattered all over, and a certain number of people were held as captives. And thereafter in the local flag meetings, I think these people were actually sent back. The number is as high as 20. That's what they say, that they were held captive for a day, and they were guests at this particular post. And thereafter, in the next day, I think it was also told by the higher headquarters that these people should be actually sent back. It could have led to a huge face-off had they used firearms or anything like that. But yes, there is a protocol, and there is a kind of agreement.
I was about to ask you that, because I heard General Naravne say that they are allowed weapons during the patrol, but there is from what we commonly hear and read, they are not supposed to take weapons during the patrol. But Naravne sir said otherwise. He said they don't use it, but during the patrol they don't go without weapons, is what he was saying. So
the standard operating procedure of the Indian Army is no one goes without weapons. The weapon is part of your body. It is there. Yes, they had not used the weapons. See, there's a subtle difference. They had not used these weapons. They had used all these, primitive things like sticks and stones and other things. And the same was reciprocated by the Chinese. But after the Sundarangchu incident and all, there had been certain agreements with the Chinese PLA that both sides would not use weapons. While dealing with China, the concept of face is very, very important. In general, when you are dealing with China as a country and Chinese as a civilization, a lot of our viewers won't be knowing this, but when you actually interact with the Chinese and the Chinese civil society per se, in every aspect of Chinese life, this concept of face is very, very important. I'll give you an example. How do we call this concept of face? The face is that on the face of a particular person, if you are admonished by your own superior, okay, it leaves him with no other choice other than to retaliate, or he finds himself cornered. So usually face means giving him an escape route or giving him an alternative. You speak to him in such a manner that that he knows that he is being admonished, but at the same time he has some kind of an escape route, and he gets away with that. Being a masculine society, the Chinese they have no other option but to again attack you in a greater force, because this is something which will not go down. They cannot gulp it, or they cannot lump it, as we say it.
So, beyond what China was doing and what Indian Army did, India, the opposition parties and the leaders from the opposition party, and of course, there were a lot of media persons who were claiming that we have lost land to China. How do you respond to this question? Like, what will be your answer to such people?
We have not lost land to China for a long time now. It is a very convenient concept of the opposition blaming the ruling party, saying that we have lost land to China. Now, these are all half-truths. We had initially lost land to China during 1962 operations. And thereafter, then both the positions of Indian Army as well as the PLA were on an detent or as-on basis after the 62 war. Now, if you consider the entire LAC, it is divided into three sectors. Now, the middle sector, the Ladakh and the Aksai Chin sector, what is on top, and the Arunachal sector, which is on south. Now, on all these three sectors, the place where there is some kind of a conformity between PLA and India, the Indian Army, is the southern sector, that is the Arunachal sector. However, the terrain and the geography dictates that there is a vast area which is basically running into, say, 5 to 6 kilometers, or at times 10 kilometers, or even 20 kilometers, which is basically like a no man's land. Our patrols go into it, and they go to the limit which we consider it as our area of perception or our line of perception. And their patrols also come into it. Now, previously what used to happen was that these patrols were small. They were, sent sporadically, and this was basically done with an aim of area domination, as well as, for building up a case later on, claiming that, I had come till this particular point, and, I had painted this rock or something like that. So this is my particular area. To build up a case in that manner, these patrols used to be sent. But over a period, because the infrastructure on our side, as well as the Chinese side, the road infrastructure and your ability to project yourself further has increased. And the number of patrols have also increased. So now there is a frequent clash of patrols. There's some kind of a cat and mouse game, which is always played on the LAC. Now, sometimes there's an ingress of Chinese patrol. If you get a hint of it, you'll try to cut down their, retreat back into, that place. And most of these times, these patrols come, they stay there for 2 days, 3 days, establish temporary camps, and then they go away. And later on, they will build some kind of a, rock fortifications or something there, and with the spray paint that this is Chinese land, or some slogans like that. And thereafter, then in the flag meeting, they would build up a case saying that, yes, this is the point till which, my perception, my immediate perception lies. So that is what is the leverage he's trying to take into the next flag meeting. So what happens is that in our case, we have patrols which stop them even before they again, they try to trace back. Around 2 years ago, I had gone 10 kilometers inside. Now he stopped at the 2 kilometers line.
Inside China.
No, the Chinese perception, the no man's land is almost like 10 kilometers. It is barren. There are no, it is uninhabited. And it's a long stretch. Like if you take in, say, Aksai Chin area, these are vast stretches where, anyone can claim it as their place. The Chinese and the Indian, people on the LAC, between them, the area separating them is as far away as 10 kilometers. Like from your last post, if you advance 10 kilometers inside China, then you might encounter a PLA detachment or a PLA, permanent structure. So that is what I'm saying. So for him also to come into India, now this can be interpreted by the opposition as, we have lost 10 kilometers or 100 square kilometers. So he says 10 into 10 kilometers wide. So he says 10 into 10, 100 square kilometers of area has been lost. And, these interpretations are given, but it's not lost.
So much, sir. Thank you so much for your time. And as usual, you have explained it very well. And I'm sure we'll need one more session of China soon, because this keeps continuing every winter.
It's a very interesting country. And, apart from the geostrategy or geopolitics of it, we can also have a session wherein we try to understand China as a civilization better. Once we understand that forms the basis of understanding China and Chinese intentions in much more clarity. So you understand that the Chinese mind, when it says that when he does a particular action, he says that there are 3 or 4 implied messages in that. So that's a concept one has to understand.
True.
It's not like a traditional Westphalian, concept that, every action has an equal and opposite reaction and all that. That's our anglicized way of thinking. We have been basically anglicized to an extent that we start thinking on those, Judeo-Christian values. So we are thinking only on that. But whereas the Chinese mind works in a different manner. And his messaging is also very subtle. So we must understand that and carry on.